Hi, in this video I want to have a look at scale lengths and how they affect the playing of the guitar. You might have heard a lot of people mention the term scale length when talking about a guitar, and in this video I want to have a look at what scale length is and how it affects the guitar. So what is scale length? Well, on your guitar when you're playing the strings, the string vibrates, and that's what makes the noise. Now the area or length of the string that vibrates is from the nut here, so from this bit here where it goes over the nut to the saddle in the bridge here, and it's that area between these two here that's vibrating when you're playing the note, and that is the scale length of the guitar. It's the length of the string, or the length, that's vibrating when you play the note. So, in other words, the length from the nut to the saddle. Now, you may think, well, does it really make that much difference what the scale length actually is? Is it that important? It actually does make quite a significant difference, and there can be quite a variation between different guitars you play. So now we know what the scale length is, I just want to talk about how it affects the notes that you're playing. So now we know what the scale length is. How does it affect the guitar when you're playing it? Well, to answer that, what you have to understand is how the pitch of the notes are made when the string's played. So when you play a string, the string vibrates like so, and it's this area between the nut and the bridge that's vibrating. If you fret a note like this, the length of the string that's vibrating shorter, so the pitch gets higher, and that's the same with the scale length. So basically what it means is if the scale length is longer, the pitch of the note when it vibrates at a certain tension will be lower. This means to get the note you desire, you have to put more tension on the string. And the inverse is true as well. If you have a shorter scale length, the length of string that's vibrating shorter, so the pitch will be higher. So to get the desired note, you don't need as much tension on the string, because the more you tension the string, the higher the pitch will get. And that's basically how scale length affects guitar playing. If you have a shorter scale length, you do not need to tighten the string as much to get it to, say, a standard tuning pitch. If you have a longer scale length, you have to put more tension on that string, i.e. tighten it more to get it to the pitch you require. So what you will find is guitars with a shorter scale length will have slightly lower tension strings, or lower tension on the strings, and guitars with a longer scale length will have the strings under slightly higher tension. So why would this make a difference, if the strings are a bit higher tension or a bit lower tension? Well, it really depends what you want from your guitar and, what type of music you're going to be playing with it. If you have a longer scale length and the strings are at a higher tension, what you're going to get is you're going to get less overall vibration on the strings. So you're going to get more crisp, strident notes out of it when you're playing it. The downside is that you're going to have to use a lot more strength when you're, say, fretting notes. Because the tension of the strings are higher, you're going to have to press down harder with a fretting hand. This can perhaps make it difficult if you're wanting to do a lot of fast finger work on the fretboard. But the upside is that you will get slightly cleaner notes because there's less string vibration. Another reason, because there's less string vibration and the string is not physically moving as much, you can lower the action closer to the fretboard. And again, this can be handy in certain circumstances. If you like playing with a really low action, you might want a longer scale length so the strings are at a higher tension. So that's maybe some reasons why you would want a longer scale length. Why would you want a shorter scale length? Well, just for the exact opposites, really, you know. If you want a lower tension on the strings, a shorter scale length is better, so you're able to press down the frets more easily. Because the tension's lower, you can bend notes a lot more easily, you know. So if you like doing wild way out bends on the guitar, you know, maybe a shorter scale length would be better because it would allow you to do that with more ease. Another reason you might want a shorter scale length is that you can put on heavier gauge strings. Heavier gauge strings need more tension to get them to the desired note. So if you have a long scale length and you put on heavy gauge strings, you are going to have to tension them extremely high to get to the notes you're wanting, and that can make it almost unplayable because of the force you're going to have to use to press down each note. If you have a shorter scale length, you can put on heavier gauge strings, but you won't need that level of tension to play the notes. And that can be good if you're playing something like slide guitar or something like that, where you really want heavier gauge, where you really want a heavy gauge string on to get that sound. So maybe if you're thinking about playing slide, you might want a guitar with a shorter scale length. So they're just a few of the reasons why you might want a shorter or longer scale length. Now, just at the end, what I want to do is have a look at some different guitars and have a look at the scale lengths on them. Okay, let's have a look at some different guitars and have a look at the scale lengths of them. Now, scale lengths are generally still measured in imperial measurements, so we're looking at inches to measure it, and most guitars are around about 25 inches for a scale length. Some are more towards 24, some a bit higher, more towards 26. And you'd think maybe a half-inch difference wouldn't make that much of a difference, but it actually does. So I'll go and get some guitars and we'll have a look at them. So we'll start with this one. I've got my trusty old tape measure here. Let's get the side with the inches on it. So we'll just put it here so it's the nut to the saddle. We're looking at about 25.5 inches on this guitar, which is quite long. And when you play it, you know, they've just got sort of medium to light gauge strings. You don't have to put too much tension, but realistically, you're probably putting, you know, a good bit of tension on considering how light the gauge of the strings are. So that's that guitar. That's just a small body acoustic. I've got this electric guitar, Strat copy guitar. Let's have a look at this one. What have we got on this one? We have got to the saddle. We have got about 25 3/4 inches, so this is even longer, this one. Again, this is tuned with sort of medium to light gauge strings. And the playing's fine, you don't need too much tension to make the notes, but again, if this had heavier gauge strings on it, it would require quite a bit of force to make the note. Right, let's try some other guitars. Right, I've got this Dreadnaught Acoustic, just a bog standard acoustic here. Let's have a measure of this scale length. We'll get this here. Notice I haven't cut the bits off the new strings either. Okay, this is about the same. It's about 25 3/4 inches. This has got slightly heavier gauge strings on it. And it's out of tune. But yeah, you're having to use quite a bit of tension now, because these are heavier gauge strings than the electric. The scale length's the same, but because the strings are heavier gauge, find I'm having to use quite a bit of tension to press down and fret each note, but you are getting quite a clean, sharp note from it. Right, let's get another guitar. Okay, this is a classical guitar now. Now this is slightly different. I'll have a measure of the scale length on it. This is 25 3/4 as well, but you don't require the same level of tension you would on the acoustic I had on before, and the reason that is because it's got nylon strings on it, and nylon strings don't have the same level of tension to get the desired note. I mean, obviously you can put on fairly heavy gauge strings, but nylon strings tend not to need to go under the same level of tension as steel core strings. So the action on this is quite easy going and not too hard. But I mean, if you were to put steel strings on this, not that I recommend you put steel strings on a classical guitar, they would have to be a far higher tension. Okay, one last guitar to have a look at. I've got this Resonator here. Now this is made for playing slide, realistically. That's going to be the main functions that you're buying a Resonator for. And what the scale length here, the bridge is just under here. The scale length here is about 25 1/8. So it's just over 25, so it's a bit lower and a bit shorter, and the reason for that is that, like I said, Resonators are often made for playing slide, so what you want to do is put slightly heavier gauge strings on to get that good sound when you're sliding. So this gives them less tension. So I mean, these are just medium gauge strings I've got on it just now, and I'm not requiring a huge amount of tension on the string to make the note. So what you can see, and just certainly from me going around them, is that you're only talking about maybe 1/2 inch difference in the scale length, but that you do feel the difference when you're playing the guitar on the tension of the string and how hard you have to press to make the note. That's really all I want to say about scale lengths, but it's certainly something worth bearing in mind when you're buying a new guitar. If you want a guitar that you want to put heavy gauge strings on for whatever reason, get one with a shorter scale length. If you're wanting a guitar where you're putting light gauge strings on and you want clean, sharp notes out of it, go for a longer scale length. But certainly don't dismiss the scale length. It's certainly a serious consideration to take into account when buying a new guitar. Thanks for watching.